This is tutorial number 9 on the mail ordering API, and in this tutorial we are going to be working on the authentication. We are about to complete the authentication of the API, and we start to work on the mail management functionality, where we shall introduce TDD. So the rest of the development from the mail management and the menu management, as well as the order management, we shall be using TDD for the rest of our development. So in tutorial 8, we concluded it when we had created our API routes, and we had 6 routes, as you can see: the login route, the register route, the admin register route, the logout route, profile and refresh route. So now let us open the document we are following while we are developing our mail ordering API. The first part, in tutorial number 9, we are going to make a controller for the authentication. So we are going to call our controller auth controller. To make a controller in Laravel, we run a command php artisan make controller, then you provide the name of the controller. So as we said, we are going to call it auth controller, and we hit enter. This is going to create a controller. So we are having a message controller created successfully. So let us come back to our project, and as you see, Git has tracked this change automatically, and you are seeing under app HTTP controllers you are having the auth controller. So let us go ahead and add that change to Git. So we shall say git add. We are adding all the files. Then we say git commit, and we are going to commit. Let us call this one added auth controller. Then we commit. So after committing, coming back to our project, you are seeing that the project tree is clean. Now let us go ahead. Let us open our auth controller. So this is a fresh controller where we are going to put our login functionality, our register functionality, our refresh functionality, and the rest of the methods as we define them here in the routes. So but before we continue, let us see what's next on our agenda. So on our agenda, we are going to add a constructor to the auth controller. So to add a constructor to the auth controller, you say public function underscore constructor, then you give it a body, and inside our constructor we are going to add a middleware. So this middleware auth API, then this array we are having except login and register. So what do we mean here? We are commanding that this auth API middleware must be applied to all the routes except the login and the register. So let us go ahead and put this code inside our auth controller. So that is our constructor. And as you are seeing, Git is tracking the changes, but we shall commit later. So this code is telling Laravel that apply the auth middleware to all the routes except the login and the register. So after adding our constructor to the controller, let us see step number 4. In step number 4, we are going to modify our user migration table. By default, when we created the user model, let us move into the database. You move into migrations. By default, we are having this migration, create users table. And we are having another migration for password reset. We are having another migration for failed jobs and another migration for access tokens. So now let's open the create user table migration. Automatically we are having the starting code here and we are having the ID. So the schema is commanding Laravel to create a table called users with a field ID, name, email, password, remember token and timestamps. But remember, we need three extra fields. That is the user type, the contact. We need user type, the contact, and the image path. So let us go ahead and add these three fields to our schema. Let us put it below password. So now we are going to create user type of which we are saying it can be nullable. The image path can be nullable and the contact can be nullable, meaning that you can enter these fields, you can enter other fields while these fields they are left empty. So now, having put that into our schema, we are about to make our migration. But remember, you cannot migrate minus having a database. So let us first go and fix that one. Let's move into the .env file. And inside the .env file, let us see, we are having, by default, our database is mail ordering API. You can change this one or you can go with this one. With user, root, and we're having no password. So let us first create this database before we make the migrations. So let me start up the XAMPP server. To start up XAMPP, as we said, you type sudo /opt/lamp/lamp, then you type start and enter. You provide your sudo password. Let me see, opt/lamp. Okay, there is a spelling error. This one must be lamp, like this. You hit enter. Sometimes it won't start right away. So let us try this command again. And now you are seeing that the XAMPP services, they were started. So after starting them, let us go ahead and open phpMyAdmin. You open up your browser and you type http://localhost, then phpMyAdmin. You hit enter. So as you are seeing, let us go to databases and create our database, which is mail_ordering_API, and you hit on create. So as you are seeing, this is a database with no table. We are about to make our tables using the migrations. So after creating our database, let us see what is next. we need to make some changes in the user's model or in the user model. So go to the user model, we are going to implement Jwt Subject. So whenever you implement Jwt Subject, you must override two methods. And these are the two methods: get Jwt identifier and get Jwt custom claims. So whenever you implement Jwt Subject, these methods must be placed in your code. Otherwise, Jwt Subject will complain. So as we said, let us go into the user model. So let us move back. But before we go into the user model, let us first commit to Git, because as you remember, we have made some changes to the migration. So let us go ahead and track that change. Let me first clear the terminal. So we shall say git add, then git commit -m. Let us say modified the user migration and after committing to git, let us go ahead and open up the user model. So to go to the user model, open up the models and click on user. And as you see, user extends authenticatable. So here we must implement Jwt Subject. All the procedures, I put them inside this document. So at the end of the lecture, I will be providing you with this document and you can follow as you are practicing. So let us get this, implement Jwt Subject. So you are seeing our user class has extended authenticatable, and it is implementing Jwt Subject. So now, since we are implementing Jwt Subject, we must go ahead and place the namespace for Jwt Subject. This use Timon Jwt auth contracts /Jwt Subject. So you must go ahead and add this to your namespaces. So don't forget to add it. So after that one, we also have to modify our fieldables. We are all the fields we are going to mass assign. Let us add another field for user type. And as we said, we must implement the two methods which you must override once you implement Jwt. So let us go ahead and place those two methods. So the first method is get Jwt identifier. So we shall say public function get Jwt identifier, and this one must return a key. So we shall say return $, this get key. And it's a method. So get Jwt identifier must return this. So we have implemented one of the methods. This is one of the methods. The next method is for custom claims. So we shall say public function get Jwt custom claims, get Jwt custom claims, and in its body, this one we are going to return an empty array. Return an empty array. So now, do not forget to implement these two methods once you implement Jwt Subject. Otherwise, you will get an error. So let us go ahead and move into the user factories. We are going to modify a bit in the user factories. This is the next step for the user factory. We are going to use the bcrypt function for the password. So to get into the factories, you just move under database, factories, go to the user factory. And as you are seeing here, by default, we are having a password, but we are going to change this one. We are going to change this one and use the bcrypt function. So we shall say bcrypt then inside the bcrypt let us put password. So which means whenever we use the factory, each of the users we must create must be having a password which is a password, and it is bcrypted or encrypted using the bcrypt function. So we shall be using the faker to do that. Having changed that, we are also going to add the user type to the faker. So let us add the user type to the faker. So this faker, we are going to be using it to generate random values for our fields inside the database. So as you are seeing now, we are having an empty table, but we are about to make the migrations. But after making those migrations, still our table will be empty. So we shall need some dummy data inside the table, such that we can start working with that dummy data. And that is the use of the faker. So the faker will provide us with dummy data inside our table. So now after making sure that we are having the user type here and the password, and also let us put for the image path. Sorry. Let us also add the image path to the faker. Image underscore path. And for this one, I will use random. So I will just get any random number between 0 and 10. So now, let us move back to our auth controller. And for now, before we add other functionalities to the auth controller, let us first go ahead and make our migrations. So for you to migrate, you must run the command php artisan migrate, and automatically we are seeing that all our migrations were successful. Now let us come to our database. We click on the mail API, ordering API. Now you are seeing that we are, after running the migration, we are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 tables. And now if we click on the users table, you are seeing that it is empty. As I said, we need some dummy data to start working with that dummy data. So we are going to use what we call a database seeder to seed some dummy data. So before we seed, we could use the Tinker shell to invoke our factories, but let us use the database seeder. So you come to the database seeder and let me uncomment this line of code. So it is app models user factory into brackets 10. So we are going to use the factory to generate the random dummy data for the user model. And this value 10, it means that we are going to create 10 users inside our table. So if you change this one to 20, it means you will create 20 users. But let us go for 10. And now, after making sure that our seeder can work, let us go ahead and seed. So to seed in Laravel, we use a command php artisan db seed, like this. So you click enter. Okay, let me see. Contains abstract method and it must therefore be declared abstract. Line 12. Okay, we are having something which is not okay. Let us see. Let us first go back to the auth controller and see. For the auth controller, okay, we implemented this middleware. We must go ahead and implement the guard. So let us first work on the auth controller, then we migrate. Okay. First of all, we shall need to use the user model and the auth since we are applying the middleware. And we shall need a validator to validate our data. So now let us go ahead and add these namespaces. Let us add these namespaces to our auth controller. So this is for the validator, this is for the user model, and this is for the auth. And automatically, since we are applying the middleware, we must go ahead and implement the guard. So to implement the guard, let us move down here and say public function guard or protected. We can call protected or public, any protected function guard. And we are returning auth, then facade guard. Return auth, then the facade guard. And it's a function. So now After doing that, let us go ahead and implement our function for the register, or what we call the register function. So to implement the register function, let's declare the register function by saying protected function register just below the constructor. Protected function register, and this one takes a request because you are going to be getting data from the form. And since we are working on the back end, we shall be using Postman to test our API. As you will see, request, and let us give it a body. And for now, we are going to validate all the fields we are passing into the register function. So declare a variable validator. The validator will be equal to validator facade, and we are making. So validator facade make, and you pass in our request, then all. So we are commanding it to validate whatever is coming from request. Whatever is coming in as a request should be validated. And this one is going to be an array. So the first value to validate, we shall be validating the name. So we shall say that the name is required. So user must put in the name. It is required, and it must be a string between, let us say, must be a string between 2 to 100. Between 2 to 100. So after validating our name, let us go ahead and validate the email. So still the email must be required. So user must type in the email, and it should be of type email. It should be of type email, and at the same time it must be unique. Unique users. So that is an attribute we can use with the email. And after making sure that the user must enter the email, let us validate the password. So we shall say password. It must be required. So the user must type in the password, and this password should be confirmed. And it should be a minimum of 6 characters. So another field, let us give it file, because we want to register users with their avatars or their photos. So we are going to be using file for that, and it must be required. Okay, for this, let us just define the maximum size for the file. Let us give it 5120. And this one means 5 MBs. So the image file which must be uploaded, it must be with a maximum of 5 MBs. And our last field we are going to put in is the contact. So this is our last field, which is the contact. That is also required. So let us go ahead and this one. So that is the part for our validator. So now, after making sure that we have validated, let us go ahead and check what happens, what if the validator fails. So we must handle that condition. So let us say if validator $, if $validator, this one must be single. If $validator fails, we must return a message. Return, and we are going to return a response. Return a response, and this response is going to be a JSON response. It's going to be a response in the form of JSON. Remember, JSON, it is the type of data we are working with. Now we shall say validator errors. And for this, let us pass the error code 422. Then we terminate. So for this block of code, we are saying here we are validating our fields. Once anything goes wrong with the data here and the validator fails, we are going to get the error and return it as a JSON response. So let us continue. Let us continue. So after that, let us put another if statement, and we say if not request has a file. So if the user never selected a file, if not $, if not $request has a file, assuming the user enters all the fields but he forgets to put the file, let us try to handle this error. Let us try to handle this error. So let us put our block here, and we are going to return response in the form of JSON, response JSON, and we shall print an error, upload file not found. Let us say upload file not found, and after that we shall return an error code. So let us go ahead and terminate. So now you are seeing that if a user enters the fields and forgets to enter the file, we have validated that. And next, remember this code for file, it will take whatever file which comes. So now what I want to validate or to select only JPG or PNG files, and those are the only files allowed. So now for this we shall say allowed file extensions, allowed file extensions. So allowed file extension, and this is an array. So you must put whatever file you want to allow here. So the first one is JPG. Those ones will be allowed, and JPEG, and lastly PNG. So those are the only files I am allowing to upload. So let us continue and say extensions $sign $extension must be equal to request and the request is a file of which it must be with the name file. So we shall be providing name file in Postman or in your form as a front-end developer. Get client original extension. Get client original extension. So this is a built-in function in Laravel which will get the file you have provided, and it will get its extension. And after getting that extension, it will be storing it inside this variable extension. So the user inputs a file, so this code will get the extension of that file and it will store it in the variable extension. So let's check. We are going to compare. So let's check. Let us create a variable check. Check is equal to in underscore array. Also, this one is a built-in function. It is an array function which compares two arrays. The first one is going to be the extension, and the second one is the allowed file extension. So now, what are we on here? Up here, we created this variable, allowed file extensions, and we are now getting an extension from the file the user inputs. Now we are having this is an extension containing the extension of the file, and these are the allowed extensions. So we are going to compare this and see if this extension or the file the user inputs, its extension is within these ones. If it is within that, then we can go ahead with our code. So let us create a new variable and let us call it image, and the image will be equal to $request, and we are requesting whatever comes from our file or the user inputs in file, and we are storing it as an image. After comparing, so now after doing that, we are going to create a variable. Let us call it $new name, and that one will be equal to, let us call the rand function, or the function to generate a random number. And once we generate a random number, let us go ahead and concatenate a period or a dot, and also concatenate our image. $, we concatenate our $image, and get, we are concatenating the, let's concatenate the image extension dot get client original extension. Now remember, this is a function. So let us see what is going on here. A user is inputting a file here. After comparing and seeing that the extension is allowed, we shall go ahead and get the file from the user input and store it in this variable image. And that file will be having an extension. So now we are creating a new variable, and we are generating a random number, and we are concatenating the extension of this. So this is the new image name. So now let us continue with our code. So after getting the name of our image, we are going to move it into the public folder. For now, I am going to be working with the public folder locally, and later we shall see that we shall change the path to use what we call Amazon, or what we call the S3 bucket, Amazon S3 bucket. As we said in the introduction, that we shall be uploading our images on Amazon S3 bucket. So now this code is going to get our image, and it moves it in the upload folder stroke users. So if the folder doesn't exist, to go ahead and create it. Dot okay, this function takes more than one argument. That function takes more than one argument. So the second argument, we are going to store this. We are going to store that. So now what is going on here? What is going on is that After getting our image name here, we are moving that image in the public path in a folder called uploads, and inside uploads we are creating another folder called users, and we are putting our file name here. So now after uploading our file name into that folder, we shall get the file path and store the path inside the database. So never store the image files directly in the database table. Just take the path into the table and store the images themselves somewhere else. So now, let me put a comment here. Let me say in the later stage we shall put the code here to upload the images on Amazon S3 bucket. So we shall be creating an S3 bucket on Amazon. So after uploading our image, let us go ahead and create a code to upload other fields into the database plus the path. So let us create a new variable called user, and this one must be equal to new user. So this user here is the user model we are talking about. So for this we are creating an instance of the user model. User is equal to new user. So this is the instance of the user model, and we are going to be working with this instance. So to use that instance, let us say, remember this model has our fields, our database fields. Let us go ahead and say user is having a field name, and the name must be equal to whatever is coming from the request, or whatever the user puts as the name. And I'm going to duplicate it for other fields. Let me copy and paste. Our second field is email. So we are getting whatever the user inputs as email and storing it in the email variable. And another one is going to be the password. Password. So this is password, but remember we must encrypt our password. So we use bcrypt function. Whatever the user types in as the password, we are going to encrypt it using the bcrypt function. Then our next variable is the user type. User type, we shall get whatever the user types in as the user type. But remember, in this one we are going to hard code it. I will show you a reason as to why. This register is an endpoint for the user. So whoever will be using this register function will be a user, not an admin. As we said, we shall create another endpoint for the admin registration. So let us hard code that one. And now the next field is image underscore path, and this one we are having our path, which is $ new name. And lastly, we are having the contact. Sorry. Lastly, we are having the contact. And this one must be equal to whatever the user types in as the contact, and after that, let us create a variable called results, and results will be equal to whatever is in the user instance, and for now we call the save function. Then we hit enter. So what this code is going to do, will automatically get whatever is in user and call a save function, and that will save our data inside the database. So now after saving our data inside our database, we must return a response to the user, and for now we shall say return response, and it must be a JSON response, return response JSON, and it's going to be a message. So we shall be throwing a message to the user, and this message should say new user created successfully. New user created successfully. And we must go ahead and terminate this. So this is the code we need for the user registration. So let us first go back to our database and see let me try to run the dbseed, php artisan dbseed. Time on Jwt custom claims sanctum. Let us first come back to the user model, not to the user controller, and see. Let's first come back to the model. By the way, we don't need this API token, and we don't need to use sanctum because we are using Jwt. And for Jwt, it must implement Jwt Subject. We must implement this Jwt custom claims. User authenticatable facade Jwt Subject user. Okay, at line 11, yes, user extends elements Jwt. Okay, let us analyze this error. As you are seeing, the error is saying class app models user contains one abstract method, and it must therefore be declared abstract or implement the remaining methods. So you are seeing that it is complaining that we must implement get Jwt custom claims. we made a mistake here and we called it Jwt custom claims. So it must be get. So don't forget to put get Jwt custom claims. And as I know, for now it must go ahead and migrate. No, it must go ahead and seed our database. As you are seeing, for now we are having no record in the DB. So now let us run seed again. Perfect, database seeding complete. And now if you come back, you are seeing that if we run the seed, automatically we are going to get 10 default users with random email addresses and all other data fields. And as you are seeing, for now, we shouldn't mind about the user type, but for our API, we shall be having two types of users, the user and the admin. But for now, remember this is a random function generating the user type, and each of the users is having a password. Remember, in our user factory, we defined that each seed we make must be having a function, a password, which is encrypted using the bcrypt function. So now, after seeding our database, and now we are having the default user, all default users, we can go ahead and log in into our database. But as you see, we are having the register method inside our controller, and we have not yet created what we call the login method. So let us go ahead and implement the login function. Let us go ahead and implement the function inside our database. So we are going to declare public function login. So for this, let us say public function or protected function. Let us call it protected function login, and this one must accept form fields. So request, and let us give it a body, and within the body, let us put our validator. Within the body, let us put our validator. For this, we shall say $sign like we did in the other one. We shall say $sign validator. This one must be equal to validator, and we use the make function, and we get whatever is being passed in as the request, and we are requesting all the fields which are coming in, and this one must be an array. This one must be an array, and our first field in the array is going to be the user email. So the first field will be the email, the first field will be the email, and this one must be required. Sorry, and it must be of type email, and the second field must be the password, also the password must be required, and it must be of type string with a minimum of 6 characters. So from that, those are the only fields we need to validate. And now we shall say, what if the validator fails? So we must handle that. Let us say if validator if the validator fails, let us go ahead and return a JSON response to the user. Return response of type JSON and $ validator errors, and return error code 400. Error code 400 is the error code for bad request. So now after that, if the validator passes, we must go ahead and continue. And for this, let us say our token validity. So our token must be able to expire. Our token validity must be equal to 24 times 60. So we are giving it 1 day. So any token issued must be valid for 1 day. And now let us say $ this. So this guard, and we use factory. Set TTL, set TTL, then we pass in our token validity. So this is a function which is going to trigger the validity of our token. Once it is 24 times 60 or 1 day, the token must expire. And now let us continue and say if not $token, if not $token is equal to $this, and we are referencing this guard, attempt $validator validated. So for that, let us return a JSON response, return response JSON, and this one must be an error message. Which is unauthorized. Unauthorized This one must be an array. Then we are passing the error code 401. So let us get the user type from our DB, because we must know that is it the admin logging in or the user. So we shall say user type must be equal to, we use the user model and the facade where the email is equal to $request email. So whatever the user gets as the email, and now we are getting the user type. User, this is a string. We are getting the user type. So what do we mean with this line of code? We are saying from the user's model, let us get the user type where the email is equal to whatever the user puts in as the email. So if the user is an admin, we shall see that is really an administrator. If he's a user, we shall return user. So after that, let us return a JSON response. Return response. This is a function. Response JSON, and this is an array. We shall return the user type, and our user type must be equal to whatever we return as user type, and at the same time we return the token. Remember, this is an array, so we can have user token. And let us go ahead and terminate. Sorry, we have to put the square bracket here. So that is it. So that is the code for logging in. The code we are going to be using to log in. This one is not there. So for now, we are having the code for register, we are having the code for login, and now we are going to go ahead and test those two functions, the login and the register function. So for us to test, we must use what we call postman. So let me go ahead and launch my postman app. So now this is our postman app which is launched. We are going to test these two endpoints, the login and the register. But before that, you must go ahead and start up your server. To start up the server, we shall say php artisan serve. So this is a command we use to start up our development server. PHP artisan serve, then you hit enter. Now you are seeing that our development server has been started on localhost at port 8000. So if we go ahead and open up this one in the browser, so this is our Laravel application which is being launched. And as our application is launching, this is our brand new Laravel application. So now let us go inside the Postman and test our endpoints. So you click on new to create a new tab, and remember our login route was a post endpoint. If you can come back to the API, you are seeing login, it is post. So inside Postman, we shall say http colon 127.0.0.1 port 8000, and remember we used the auth prefix on the API middleware. So to reference that, we shall say stroke API stroke auth. Then we reference our endpoint, which is login, and you go to headers. You must make sure you type here accept, and your application must be application stroke JSON. Now you go to the body section, you choose row, and under this drop down you choose JSON because we are using JSON. So now remember our login route takes two parameters. The first one is the email, and we shall come back and input this email, and then the last one is password. So as you remember, for all our users, we give them a password. So let me try with an email which does not exist, and you see, let me say Chirumira Dan at gmail.com. If I try to submit, remember our server is running. So if you try to submit, as you see, error unauthorized, meaning that this user does not exist inside our database. So let us go into our table and see. These are the users we are having. You can choose any you want. And if you click on, let me copy this user, and let us see the user type. The user type is Tontam. Okay. Let us go ahead and put this email, and we try to log in with this user, christina.nicole@example.org. So if I click on login, wow, success. You are seeing that we have logged in, and as you are seeing, our user type is Tontam, and a token has been issued to this user, meaning that our our login endpoint works perfectly. And now, let me go ahead in the database and try to change all these ones, because all these ones must be user. We haven't created an endpoint for the admin. So let me update all the fields. Let me say update users, and I will say set user type equal to user. So all of them I want to update them and make them user. Success. All the 10 records have been updated, and if you come back, you are seeing that the user type is user. So let us try to log in again and see the type. Perfect. So now we are having a user who has logged in. So we have tested our login endpoint. Let us go ahead and register a new user. Let us go to the register endpoint, and for the registration, remember we said we must put in the email, This one was for the register. Let us use the form data since we are having the file. You click on form data. After clicking on the form data, our first field must be name. Let me say this is Chirumira Isaac. Chirumira Isaac. Then the email, Chirumira Isaac at gmail.com. Then the password. Let me say 123 Isaac. But remember, we said we must confirm the password. So we put password underscore confirmation. Otherwise, it will reject 123 Isaac. Let me show you what happens if the confirmation does not match the real password. Let us first go ahead and try to register. Perfect. You are seeing that our validation works. Password confirmation doesn't match and the contact field is required. So now let us move ahead and make the password to match. If we try to log in, this time that password notification goes away. So now after confirming our password, let us put the contact, and my contact is 256 9939936. And remember, we must put a file. And for the file, we must define the type of the file to be file. Do not forget to choose the type. Then you select your file. If you come on the desktop, I'm having some passport photos. Let me take this one and try to submit. Perfect. Our JSON response, new user created successfully. And now, if we come back into our database and refresh our table, let us move down. You are seeing that a new user has been created. And let us see the type of the user is user, and the image path. This is the image path. You are seeing the image path. So this is the random number which was generated, and the extension from the file was obtained and appended to the path. And now let us try to go inside the project directory and see if the image was really uploaded. So let us go into the project directory. This is the project directory, and try to move into the public folder. Perfect. In the public folder, you are seeing that we are having the uploads folder, and in the uploads, we are having the users, and this is the file we have just uploaded. So now, let's end this tutorial. We shall continue from here, and in the next tutorial, we are going to complete our auth or the API authentication. So in this tutorial, we have created the user login, we have created the user register, we have registered a new user. As you are seeing, we have been able to upload the avatar or the image for the user, and after uploading this image, we are getting the image path and we are storing the path inside our database. As I told you, for now we are working locally, that's why we are storing the images here, but we shall change the path to reflect on the Amazon S3 bucket, as we shall see after completing the user authentication. Do not forget to click on the subscribe button. Let us meet in the next tutorial.